Hello there, and welcome to Deep Earth Stories. Get comfortable, turn the lights down if you can, because what we're about to explore together has been waiting a very, very long time for someone to listen. But before that, please subscribe to my channel and tell me in comments where are you listening from and what time is there right now. Tonight, we're going to talk about water. Not just the water in your glass on the nightstand, not just the rain that taps softly on your window. We're going to talk about all the water, every ocean, every river, every cloud drifting slowly across every sky, every raindrop that has ever fallen on every leaf since the very beginning. connected and deepened. The first seas, the first oceans. This process likely took tens of millions of years, maybe longer. It was not fast, it was not dramatic. It was the slow, patient work of time and cooling and accumulation. But it happened, and once it happened, everything changed. For a moment, just breathe. Think about rain for a second. The sound of it, the smell of it. That particular smell of rain on dry earth, which has a name, petrichor, one of the loveliest words in the English language. The sound of rain on a roof at night, which is one of the most naturally sleep-inducing sounds in the world. That rain has been falling for nearly 4 billion years. Every drop that falls tonight is part of a cycle that began when the Earth was young, and the skies were thick and dark, and the whole world was in the process of becoming. The water in the rain tonight is the same water, not similar water, not replacement water. The actual same water molecules recycled and moved and changed in form across billions of years of Earth's history, evaporated from ancient oceans, fallen as rain on forests that no longer exist, locked in glaciers for millions of years, released again, fallen again, over and over and over, while you are in a very quiet way part of that ancient cycle. The water in your body was rain long before anyone was alive to watch it fall. Let that thought be gentle and soft, not overwhelming, just quietly true. Chapter 9. What did the first ocean look like? So the first oceans formed. But what did they look like? Here is where the story becomes both fascinating and beautifully uncertain. We do not have direct evidence of the very first oceans. The oldest rocks on Earth, the ones that have survived the billions of years of geological change without being recycled back into the mantle, are only fragments, hints, small windows into a very old world. The oldest known mineral grains on Earth are tiny crystals of a mineral called zircon, found in a region of Western Australia called the Jack Hills. Some of these zircon crystals have been dated to over 4.4 billion years old. That is extraordinary. They formed just 100 or 200 million years after the Earth itself, and they're so small you could barely see one with the naked eye. But these tiny crystals carry information. Scientists can analyze the chemical composition of ancient zircons and learn things about the conditions under which they formed. And what the Jack Hill zircons suggest is remarkable. They suggest that liquid water may have existed on the surface of the Earth very early, perhaps as early as 4.4 billion years ago, even while the solar system was still being bombarded by asteroids, even when the Earth was only a few 100 million years old. This challenges an older idea that the early Earth was always a hellish, your waterless place in its earliest phase. The picture may be more complicated and more interesting. Perhaps there were brief periods when liquid water existed, interrupted by giant impacts that would have vaporized everything temporarily, and then reformed again as the Earth cooled once more. The first oceans were almost certainly different from today's oceans in several ways. They were likely warmer. The young Earth still had more internal heat than today, and the sun, while less bright in visible light, may have contributed to a warm surface in combination with the thick greenhouse atmosphere. They were likely more acidic. The early atmosphere was rich in carbon dioxide, which dissolves in water to form carbonic acid. The first rains falling through that thick CO2 atmosphere would have been mildly acidic, and the first oceans may have been more acidic than today's seawater. They were likely different in colour. This is a detail that I always find quietly wonderful. The sky of the early Earth, thick with different gases, would not have been the familiar blue we know. It may have been orange or reddish at times, and the ocean, reflecting that sky, might have looked orange or brown or a colour for which we do not have a name, because no human has ever seen it. The blue ocean, the blue sky, that image of Earth from space as the pale blue dot, that came later. It took time, it took life, as we will discuss in parts ahead. The familiar blue of today's Earth is a relatively recent development in the history of a 4 billion-year-old planet. Let that image drift through your mind softly. An early Earth with brown or orange seas under a thick cloudy sky. Warm and acidic water pooling in the valleys between young volcanoes. Steam rising everywhere. The constant sound of rain and the distant rumble of volcanic eruptions. A world in the process of finding itself. It is so different from anything we know. And yet it is the same world. The same planet beneath your feet right now. Let your breathing be slow and even. Let your body feel heavy and still. We're drifting through deep time together, you and I, and there is nowhere else to be right now except here, in this quiet story. Chapter 10. The Ocean as a Chemistry Lab. Once the oceans existed, even in their earliest acidic, murky form, something began to happen that would eventually change everything about this planet. Chemistry. The ocean is not just water. It is a solution, a mixture of water and dissolved minerals and gases and compounds of every kind. From the very beginning, the young oceans were busy dissolving things. Rain falling on volcanic rock washed minerals into the sea. Hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor, cracks in the crust where superheated water mixed with chemicals from the mantle added more. The rivers that began to form as the water cycle established itself carried dissolved minerals from the continents. Over millions of years, the oceans accumulated an extraordinary mixture of chemicals. Dark and full of the raw ingredients that life would one day learn to use. The ocean was patient. The ocean did not hurry. It simply held everything together in its vast, cold, dark, dissolving embrace, and let chemistry do what chemistry does over millions and millions of years, and eventually, somewhere in that darkness, in the warm water near a hydrothermal vent or in a shallow tide pool where sunlight could reach, something happened that had never happened before anywhere in the known universe. Something became alive. But again, we are not quite there yet in our story. We're still in the early ocean, still drifting in the deep time of a young planet. And tonight, that is enough. For a moment, just breathe. If you are still awake, I'm glad you're here. If your mind is beginning to soften and blur at the edges, I'm glad for that too. Both are exactly right. Both are where you're supposed to be. A soft sleep reset. Let us pause here for just a moment. Maybe you've been listening for a while now. Maybe the room is very quiet and dark. Maybe your breathing has slowed without you even noticing it slowing. Maybe the weight of your body against the bed or the chair feels heavier than it did when you first lay down. All of that is good. All of that is your body doing what bodies do at night. Resting, releasing, preparing for sleep. You do not need to hold on to the facts of this story. You do not need to remember the names. The zircons from Western Australia, the late heavy bombardment, the carbonaceous chondrites. None of that needs to stay with you. Let it drift. to listen to this story. You can follow every word. You can let it drift past you like music. You can fall asleep 3 sentences in and wake up an hour later and still feel like you were part of it. That is what this story is for. So take a slow breath right now. Let your body find its weight. Let your hands go still. Let the room be as quiet as it wants to be. We have travelled a long way already in this story. We talked about the dry young Earth and how water arrived from ancient asteroids and the slow breathing of volcanoes. We talked about the first rain and the first oceans. We talked about the water cycle beginning its endless turning. We talked about ice ages and Snowball Earth and the deep blue of the open ocean. Tonight, we go further still. We're going to talk about water and life. About how the ocean became the cradle of everything living. About the strange and beautiful chemistry that happened in the dark. About rivers and underground water, and the water that hides inside rocks and soil beneath our feet. About how water moves through living things, through forests and bodies and the breath of animals, in ways that connect everything on this planet into one vast, quiet, breathing system. It is a gentle story, a slow story, a story best heard with your eyes closed and your breathing soft. Let us begin. Chapter 16. The Dark Nursery. Somewhere at the bottom of the ocean, in the complete darkness of the deep sea floor, there are cracks in the Earth's crust where superheated water rises from below. These cracks are called hydrothermal vents. The water that comes out of them is extraordinarily hot, sometimes over 300 degrees Celsius, but it does not boil because the pressure at those depths is so enormous. It rises in dark plumes, rich with minerals dissolved from the rock deep inside the earth. Sulfur, iron, manganese, copper, a dark, hot, mineral-rich fountain rising from the ocean floor. Around these vents, in the complete darkness where no sunlight has ever reached, life thrives. Tube worms longer than your arm, swaying in the mineral-rich current. Ghostly white crabs moving slowly across the rocks. Mats of bacteria covering every surface, drawing energy not from sunlight but from the chemical reactions between the vent water and the surrounding seawater. This is a world that no human being knew existed until 1977. That was the year a group of scientists in a deep-sea submersible descended to a hydrothermal vent field near the Galapagos Islands remembers the sea, and right now that water is very still, resting inside you, quiet and warm in the dark. Let your breathing be slow, let your body be heavy, let yourself be still, like a calm sea on a windless night. Chapter 18. The Water Underground. We talk about water as if it is mostly up here on the surface, in the oceans, in the rivers, in the clouds, and those are indeed enormous quantities of water. The world ocean holds about 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of water, a number so large it dissolves into meaninglessness if you try to hold it. Just say it is vast. Say it is more than enough. Say it is one of the great facts of this planet. But there is another enormous quantity of water that most people never think about. Water that is not in the ocean or the rivers or the clouds. Water underground. Beneath your feet, right now, somewhere below the soil and the bedrock, there is water. Groundwater, filling the pores and cracks in rocks and soil, forming underground reservoirs called aquifers. Flowing slowly, almost imperceptibly, through layers of permeable rock, moving downhill, collecting in the low places of the underground landscape, just as rivers collect in the low places of the surface landscape. The amount of groundwater on Earth is vast. Scientists estimate there is about 10.6 million cubic kilometers of groundwater in the upper few kilometers of the Earth's crust. That is roughly 30 times more water than all the surface fresh water on Earth combined. More water than all the rivers and lakes and swamps and wetlands put together. By a very large margin, much of this groundwater is ancient. Some of the water in deep aquifers fell as rain thousands of years ago. Some of it is tens of thousands of years old. There are aquifers in various parts of the world where the water has been underground for hundreds of thousands of years, slowly filtered by rock, cooled by depth, isolated from the surface world, still and quiet in the dark. The Ogallala Aquifer, under the Great Plains of the United States, contains water that accumulated largely during and after the last ice age. It has been there for thousands of years, slowly collected by rainfall and snowmelt soaking into the ground. It is one of the largest aquifers in the world, and it provides water for millions of people and vast areas of farmland. The Great Artesian Basin in Australia is even older. The water in its deepest sections may be over 1 million years old. Water that fell as rain on ancient mountains soaked into the ground and has been slowly moving through the rock ever since. Moving so slowly, through such tight pores, that it travels only a few meters per year. A journey of hundreds of kilometers that takes 1 million years. I find something very peaceful about that image. Water moving through rock in perfect, unobserved quiet. Not rushing, not hurrying, not aware of anything, just moving, slowly, in the dark, following the gentle pull of gravity through the ancient stone. The world is full of quiet movement that we never see. For a moment, just breathe. Chapter 19. Water and Forests. Let us come up from the underground now. Let us come back to the surface, into the air, into the light. Let us talk about forests and water, because the relationship between them is one of the most beautiful and least appreciated partnerships in the natural world. A forest is, among many other things, a water machine. Trees take up water through their roots, enormous quantities of water, drawn up from the soil by the osmotic pull of the leaves transpiring water vapour into the air. A single large tree can transpire hundreds of litres of water per day. Not drip by drip, but in a constant, invisible flow of vapour rising from the leaves into the air above the canopy. A forest of millions of trees does this together, all day, every day, releasing vast quantities of water vapour into the atmosphere above it. This vapour rises, cools, condenses into clouds and falls as rain, often over the forest itself or nearby. In other words, forests make their own rain. The Amazon rainforest is the most dramatic example of this on Earth. It is so vast and transpires such enormous quantities of water that scientists have described the moisture flows above it as flying rivers. Invisible rivers of water vapour moving through the atmosphere above the forest, carrying as much water as the physical Amazon River below. These atmospheric rivers carry moisture from the Amazon westward and southward, feeding rainfall across much of South America, including the agricultural regions far from the forest itself. The forest and the water are not separate things, they are one system. The trees need the rain to grow, the rain needs the trees to fall. Remove the forest and the rain diminishes, the land dries, the soil erodes, rivers run lower, the whole system simplifies and weakens. This is happening in parts of the world right now, tonight, as you lie still. Forests that have existed for millions of years are being slowly reduced. The rain that fell reliably for those millions of years is becoming less reliable. This system is being asked to work without some of its most important parts. But I do not want to linger in that heaviness tonight. That is a story for the daylight hours, for the waking mind. Tonight I want you to hold the image of the forest and the rain as something beautiful. Something that worked perfectly for millions of years. Something that still works in the places where it is intact. The trees breathing moisture into the air, the clouds building slowly above the canopy, the rain falling back into the forest, the roots drinking, the cycle continuing. A circle of water and life, turning quietly, every day in the green cathedral of the forest. Let that image settle around you softly, the cool shade of a forest, the soft sound of rain on leaves, the smell of wet earth, the hush and the green. Let your breathing slow, let your body be still. Chapter 20. Water inside. Living things. Every living thing on this planet is mostly water. A bacterium is about 70% water. A jellyfish is about 95% water. It is almost entirely water, held in a soft, translucent shape, drifting in the sea. A tree is about 50% water in its wood and much more in its leaves. A human being, as we mentioned earlier, is about 60% water by weight. Water is not just something that living things drink. Water is the medium of life. Every chemical reaction that makes life possible happens in water, enzymes. The molecular machines that carry out the chemistry of living cells work in water. DNA, the molecule that carries the instructions of life, is surrounded by water, protected by water, read by water using machinery. The folding of proteins, the movement of molecules across cell membranes, the generation of energy in the mitochondria, all of it happens in a watery environment inside the cell. Without water, the chemistry of life does not work, not slower, not differently, not at all. This is part of why scientists looking for life elsewhere in the universe always ask first, is there water? Not because water is the only possible medium for life perhaps, but because it is the medium we know. It is the medium that life on this planet is built on, completely and without exception. Water is a very unusual molecule. It has properties that most molecules do not have. It expands when it freezes, which is why ice floats on water instead of sinking. This matters enormously for life, because if ice sank, lakes and oceans would freeze from the bottom up in winter, trapping and killing everything inside them. Instead, ice forms on the surface and acts as an insulating layer, protecting the liquid water and the life beneath it. Water has an unusually high capacity for absorbing heat. This means that large bodies of water, like the ocean, change temperature slowly. They absorb an enormous amount of heat in summer and release it slowly in winter, moderating the climate of the surrounding land. Coastal regions are gentler in temperature than inland regions, partly because of this property of water. The ocean acts as a vast thermal buffer, smoothing out the extremes of heat and cold. Water molecules are also strongly attracted to each other. This cohesion is what allows water to climb up the inside of a tree trunk against gravity, drawn up by the transpiring leaves above. It is what creates surface tension, that invisible skin on the surface of a still pond that a water strider can walk on. Water is, in a quiet way, one of the most extraordinary substances in the universe, and the fact that it arrived on this planet slowly and patiently from ancient breathing, warm. Maybe you've been awake for all of this. Maybe you've drifted in and out, catching words and images in soft fragments. Maybe this is the first thing you have heard in a while, your mind surfacing briefly from a dream to catch a sentence or two before drifting back down. All of that is perfectly fine. All of that is right. You do not need to be fully present to this story. The story is like the water cycle. It keeps going whether you are watching or not. It has been going for 4 billion years without anyone watching most of it. It will continue tonight without you needing to hold on to it. Let your body be heavy. Let your thoughts be loose and soft. Let the words become less like information and more like the sound of a distant stream, steady and gentle, and carrying you slowly somewhere restful. If you fall asleep right now, that is a good ending to the night. If you stay awake, we will keep going together, slowly and gently into the next chapter. Either way, you are safe, you are warm, the story is here. Chapter 21. Rivers, the veins of the land. A river is one of the most calming things in the world to be near. If you have ever sat by a river, truly sat by it, not rushing past but sitting still and listening, you know what I mean. The sound it makes is endlessly varied and endlessly the same. The rush and gurgle over rocks, the deep quiet slide of water in a slow bend, the lap and ripple at the bank. There is something in the sound of a moving water that the human nervous system responds to as safe. The world drains an area the size of the contiguous United States and discharges about 20% of all the fresh water that rivers deliver to the world's oceans. The Congo, the Yangtze, the Mississippi, the Ganges, each one a living thread of ancient water, cutting through the land, carving its path over millions of years, nourishing the communities and ecosystems along its banks. Before cities, Almost every great human civilization built itself along a river. The Nile gave Egypt its life. The Tigris and Euphrates gave Mesopotamia its fertile plains. The Indus gave the Indus Valley civilization its wealth. The Yellow River nourished early China. Water was not just useful to these civilizations, it was the reason they existed where they did. It was the organizing principle of human settlement for most of human history. We built our world around water, because water made the world. Let your thoughts drift along a slow river for a moment. The dark water moving steadily, the soft sounds of the bank, the smell of mud and reeds and cool air, the sky reflected in the surface, stars or clouds or the pale light of early morning. Let that image carry you slowly. There is nowhere you need to go, nowhere you need to be but here, still and breathing in the quiet. Yes, chapter 22. The water we drink. Let us end this part of the story with something close and small and personal. The water you drink. A glass of water is, in a way, the most extraordinary thing in the world, if you think about it in the right light. Every molecule of water in that glass has existed since before the Earth formed. The hydrogen in it is nearly 14 billion years old, formed in the first moments of the universe. The oxygen in it was forged in a star that died before our sun was born. The two were brought together on this planet by ancient asteroids falling from the cold dark of the outer solar system. That water has been rain, it has been ocean, it has been glacier, it has been underground for thousands of years, it has been inside animals that are long extinct. It has been part of trees that fell in forests that no longer exist. It has been locked in polar ice and released when the ice melted and flowed into rivers and evaporated into clouds and fallen again somewhere new. And now it is in a glass, and you drink it, and it becomes part of you, briefly, before you return it to the world through your breath and your sweat and your tears. There is a kind of wonder in that, if you let yourself feel it. The water is not something separate from you. It is something you borrow briefly from the great cycle that has been running for 4 billion years. You're a temporary part of the water cycle, a brief eddy in the long, slow river of the world's water, existing for a moment before the water moves on. And in that, there is something very calming, something very releasing. The idea that you're not holding anything permanently, that everything flows through you and moves on, that the water in you right now was somewhere else before and will be somewhere else after, and that is not sad. That is just the nature of being part of a living, water-covered, breathing planet. You are part of something very old, and very beautiful, and very much larger than yourself. For a moment, just breathe. We have drifted through the deep sea vents where life may have begun, through the salt water of blood and tears, through the underground rivers moving slowly through ancient stone, through forests breathing moisture into the sky, through the chemistry of life that happens in water, only in water, always in water, through the great rivers of the world and the simple glass of water that carries the whole story in miniature. The night is deep now, and you're very still. In the parts ahead we will move toward reflection, toward the philosophical, gentle questions of what all this water means, what it peaceful, beautiful one. Let your breathing slow. Let your body be completely still. Let the images soften and dissolve like clouds moving across a night sky. You are safe. You are warm. The water in you is ancient and calm. The night is quieter now than when we started. Or maybe it only feels that way. Because you have been still for a while. Because your breathing has slowed. because the edges of the day have softened and the world outside has settled into its deep nighttime quiet. You do not need to hold on to everything we have talked about. You do not need to review or remember or organise any of it. Just let it be somewhere inside you, loose and warm, like a pile of soft blankets that you have been slowly sinking into. We have covered so much ground together. The dry young Earth, the ancient asteroids carrying water across the cold dark of the solar system, the first rain, the first oceans, the ice ages, Snowball Earth, the deep sea vents where life may have begun, the underground rivers, the forests breathing moisture into the sky, the water inside every living thing. Now, we're going to slow down even more. We're going to sit with what all of this means. We're going to think, gently and without hurry, about time, about our place in it, about how small and brief and beautiful it is to be alive on a water-covered world. This is the part of the story that is meant for the very edge of sleep, for the quiet space between being awake and being gone, for the soft dissolving of the thinking mind into something deeper and stiller. So let your body be completely heavy now. Let your hands be loose. Let your face be soft. Let your breathing do whatever it wants to do. You do not need to control it. You do not need to control anything right now. Just let the story carry you. Chapter 23. The Age of Water. 4 billion years. Let us sit with that number for a moment, not rush past it, not use it as a quick dramatic fact and move on, and let us actually try to feel the edges of it as best we can in the quiet of the night. 4 billion years ago, the first water began to settle on the surface of this planet. The first puddles, the first pools, the first shallow seas gathering in the low places of a cooling world. Since then, that water has never left. It has changed form countless times. It has been ocean and ice and vapour and rain and river and lake and underground reservoir. It has been inside living things and outside them. It has been frozen for millions of years and evaporated in seconds. It has travelled from the poles to the equator and back again in the great currents of the ocean and the atmosphere. But it has stayed here, on this planet, part of this world. The water that is in you right now, in your blood and your cells and your tears, that water has a history 4 billion years long. Every molecule of it has been somewhere else before. Many, many places, over more time than any mind can truly hold. One way I sometimes think about this is to imagine tracing a single water molecule backward through time. Let us take one molecule from the glass of water on your nightstand, or from the moisture in your breath, or from the tear that ran down your cheek the last time something moved you. Right now, that molecule is here, with you. But where was it before? Maybe a week ago it was vapour in a cloud over the Atlantic Ocean. Maybe a month ago it was running in a river somewhere in Europe. Maybe 100 years ago it was locked in a glacier in the Alps, slowly moving downhill with the ice. Maybe 1,000 years ago it was drunk by a farmer in the Indus Valley, who stood in a field and looked up at a sky that looked very much like this one. Maybe 10,000 years ago it was deep underground, moving through limestone rock at the pace of a few meters per year. Maybe 100,000 years ago it was part of the Great Laurentide ice sheet, kilometers thick, covering what is now Canada. Maybe 1,000,000 years ago it was in the ocean, near a coral reef that no longer exists. Maybe 100 million years ago it passed through the body of a dinosaur, was drunk at the edge of a lake on a warm Cretaceous afternoon, returned to the river, flowed to the sea, evaporated, fell as rain somewhere on a continent that no longer has its current shape. Maybe 1 billion years ago it was deep underground, is locked in the crystal structure of a mineral, moving so slowly through the rock that it barely moved at all for hundreds of millions of years. And at some point much further back, it was part of the ancient ocean, the very first ocean, the warm, acidic, dark, early sea where the first chemistry of life was beginning. And before that it was falling through the sky, not as rain, but as an asteroid, a rocky, icy body from the outer solar system, tumbling slowly through space, carrying water locked in its minerals across billions of kilometers of cold, dark nothing. And before that, the oxygen atom in this water molecule was inside a star, fused from carbon in the heart of a dying sun, released in a great explosion of light and heat and force, is he scattered across the galaxy in a cloud of atoms that would slowly drift together to form our solar nebula. And the hydrogen atom, even older, born in the first few minutes of the universe, 13.8 billion years ago. One water molecule, 14 billion years of history, and right now, tonight, it is here, with you, in this quiet room, and part of the great story of water on Earth, and the even greater story of water in the universe. For a moment, just breathe. Let that thought be as soft as it wants to be. Let it lose its sharp edges and become just a feeling. The feeling of being connected to something very, very old. The feeling of being a brief and beautiful part of a story that was already billions of years long before you arrived, and will continue for billions of years after you're gone. That is not a sad thought. In the quiet of the night, I think it is one of the most peaceful thoughts available to us. You're small, you're brief, and you're part of something immeasurably vast and ancient and beautiful. Chapter 24. What the Ocean Knows. The ocean is old. Older than any mountain on Earth. Older than the continents in their current shapes. The ocean has been here, in various forms, for nearly 4 billion years. In that time, the ocean has seen everything. It has seen the first living things appear in its depths, small and simple and utterly unaware of what they were beginning. It has seen those living things slowly diversify and grow more complex over hundreds of millions of years. It has seen the first creatures with shells and bones, the first fish, the first animals brave or foolish enough to drag themselves onto land. It has seen continents drift. When the ocean formed, the land masses of the Earth were arranged completely differently from how they are today. The process of plate tectonics, the slow movement of the great plates of the Earth's crust over the surface of the mantle, has rearranged the world's geography over billions of years. Continents that were once joined have split apart. Oceans that once existed have closed as continents collided. New ocean floor is being created right now at mid-ocean ridges, where plates pull apart and magma rises from below to fill the gap. The Atlantic Ocean, that vast body of water between the Americas and Europe and Africa, did not exist 200 million years ago. The Americas were joined to Europe and Africa in a single supercontinent called Pangaea. The Atlantic began to open about 180 million years ago, as the plates slowly pulled apart. It has been widening ever since, at roughly the speed at which your fingernails grow, about 2 centimeters per year. In 200 million years, the Atlantic will be much wider than it is today, or it may have closed again, depending on how the plates move. The geography of the Earth is not fixed. It is slowly, continuously changing. The ocean is not a permanent thing. It is a temporary arrangement of water in the low places between shifting land masses. But on the time scale of a human life, the ocean is as permanent as anything we know. It was here before the first human ancestor walked the savannah. It will be here long after the last one is gone. The ocean does not think, it does not feel, it doesn't remember. And yet there is something in the presence of the ocean that feels ancient and knowing. Something in the sound of waves that seems very small, and we're here for a very short time. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Modern humans, our species, by Homo sapiens, have existed for perhaps 300,000 years. That's a long time by human standards, longer than recorded history by many, many times. But against the age of the Earth, it is almost nothing. If you compress the entire history of the Earth into a single year, a common way of helping the mind grasp deep time, modern humans would appear in the last few hours of December 31st. All of recorded human history, everything from the first writing in Mesopotamia to the present day, would occupy roughly the last minute of that year. The water cycle has been running for about 10 months of that year. The oceans have existed for most of that year. Life has been in the ocean for about 3/4 of that year. And we have been here for a few hours. In those few hours, we have done extraordinary things. We have built civilizations and art and science and music and stories. We have asked questions about the nature of the universe and gotten some remarkable answers. We have mapped the genome of a life. We have sent machines to the edges of the solar system. We have split the atom and decoded the structure of DNA and worked out the age of the universe. And we have lain down at night, in the dark, and listened to the rain. As all of our ancestors did, in their huts and caves and palaces and apartments, going back 300,000 years. There is something very grounding about knowing that you are part of a long line. A long, quiet line of human beings who lay down in the dark and heard the water and felt the comfort of being safe inside while the world turned outside, who breathed slowly and let the day go and drifted towards sleep. You're doing exactly what humans have always done, exactly what the whole long story of your species includes in every generation without exception. You're doing one of the most human things there is, resting. For a moment, just breathe. Let your thoughts be very quiet now. Let them become less formed, less worded. Let them become more like feelings. Warm feelings, safe feelings. The feeling of being small in the very best way, like a child held by something much larger and older and steadier than themselves. The world is old and large and wet with ancient water, and you are here, briefly and beautifully, part of all of it. Chapter 27. The Faithfulness of Water. 1. More thought for this part of the story before we move into the very final, quietest section. Water has been faithful to this planet for 4 billion years. It arrived, and it stayed. Through the bombardment of the early solar system, through the Snowball Earth episodes when the entire planet froze, through the great extinction events, through the rise and fall of every ecosystem that has ever existed on this world, the water stayed. It changed form, it moved around, it was locked up in ice for millions of years and released again. It was deep underground and then it was in the air. It was in the ocean and then it was in the bodies of dinosaurs and then it was in the ocean again. But it was always here. Always part of this planet. Nothing has ever truly taken the water away. Not the heat of the early Earth. Not the violence of meteor impacts. Not the extremes of ice ages or greenhouse periods. No, not the billions of years of geological change that have rearranged the entire face of the planet. The water has stayed. There is something in that faithfulness that I find, in the quiet of late night, genuinely comforting. The world changes. Everything changes. Continents drift. Species rise and fall. Civilizations appear and are buried by time. Mountains are raised by tectonic force and slowly ground down by rain and river and return to the sea. But the water stays, the same water, for something interesting happens. Everything connects. The cloud above the mountain and the river below it. The river and the sea. The sea and the sky. The sky and the rain and the forest and the soil and the underground water and the spring and the stream and the river and the sea. One great circle, one vast, slow, interconnected system, moving and cycling and flowing and returning endlessly for 4 billion years. And inside that system, everything that has ever lived, every bacterium and every whale, every fern and every oak tree, every insect and every bird and every fish and every mammal and every human being who has ever drawn breath on this planet. All of us part of the water cycle, all of us temporary arrangements of water and carbon and a few other elements, borrowed from the world for a short time and then returned. The water moving through us. The water becoming us briefly and then moving on. It is a perspective that makes the boundaries between things feel softer. Between you and the rain, between you and the river, between you and the ancient ocean, between you and the water that was inside a dinosaur, or inside a fern in a carboniferous forest, or inside a fish in a warm Cambrian sea. You're not separate from any of that. You're a continuation of it, a moment in the same long story. And that story is not frightening. It is not cold or impersonal or lonely. It is warm. It is connected. Let the story dissolve slowly, the way a dream dissolves when you first wake and then let go of it. Let the facts and the images and the ideas become just a feeling, a warm, soft, peaceful feeling. The feeling of being part of something ancient and beautiful. The feeling of being small in the very best way. The feeling of being held by something much larger and older and steadier than any worry or any plan or any thought that might try to keep you awake. You are held by the world tonight, by the ancient water and the turning earth and the quiet dark of the night. And you can let go now, completely. The last few words. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for lying still and breathing slowly and letting this story carry you through deep time and ancient water, through the dry young earth and the asteroids and the first rain and the first ocean and all the long beautiful history of water on this world. You did not need to remember any of it. You did not need to stay awake for any of it. You only needed to be here, breathing, letting the words wash over you like something warm and slow, and you were here. The water in you is 4 billion years old. The hydrogen atoms are nearly 14 billion years old. You are, in the most literal and quiet sense, made of ancient starlight and the dust of the solar system and the patient work of time. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most remarkable things there is. And tonight, all of that ancient, remarkable material is resting, is still, is warm in the dark. The ocean is out there, vast and quiet, turning slowly with the planet. The rain is falling somewhere in the world, as it has been falling for 4 billion years. The rivers are running, the glaciers are slowly moving. The water underground is moving through ancient stone at the pace of a few meters per year, unhurried, faithful, going where it needs to go. And you are here, breathing, resting, part of it all. Let your eyes be soft. Let your mind be soft. Let the night be exactly what it is. Quiet, dark, safe, ancient. The world turns slowly. The water moves. The stars burn far away. And you rest. You rest. You rest.